Well, hello everyone. Welcome.
Hello.
Welcome to our webinar on automations and integrations. We're so excited to have everyone here. We're going to wait a couple of seconds to give everyone a chance to join us, to not miss out on anything. But in the meantime, if in the chat you could let us know where you're joining from, we would love to know. Amazing. See some people joining. Amazing.
I've also just created a quick poll that you can find in the right menu because we'd love to know the volume of influencers that you're working with on a monthly basis. That can really help us understand pretty much how useful this will be today for you.
Absolutely.
Feel free to share your votes.
Okay, I see some votes coming in. People working with more than 50 influencers. Great, I see that number growing. Because at the end of the day, we want to help you work with high volume very efficiently and have all the tools you need to scale your influencer program. So very excited to see that number growing. Amazing. Okay, so while everyone is answering that poll, do you think we could get started?
I think so. I think we have a good number of attendees. Should be ready to go.
Amazing. Well, in that case, welcome everyone. Welcome to our webinar on automations, how to automate your workflows. And also we're going to be talking about integrations. We're very excited about this. I'm Nicole. I'm Associate Director at Influencer Hero. I work with dozens of different campaigns with, I can confidently say, more than 1,000 creators. So I'm very excited to be here with the best person to talk about this with. I'll let you introduce yourself.
Thank you for that. Yeah, I'm very excited to be here. I'm Guadalupe, but everyone can just call me Lupe. I know it's not an easy name to pronounce. But yeah, I'm product marketing manager here at Influencer Hero. So what I do is basically work very closely with our clients and users to see and understand how they use the platform, what they like about it, what could be improved, to then transform all of that feedback into actionable items for our developers and, just keep on developing and improving Influencer Hero to be the best CRM for influencer marketing.
Amazing. And today we're going to be talking automations, and we're going to use Influencer Hero as a platform, as an example, because it's the one that we work with that we can use. But I'm sure that there's other platforms in which you can implement this, some ideas to spark to your teams as well, see what automations can be done maybe with your own AI. But we want to do this because in Influencer Hero, with just one platform, one person can handle thousands of creators. So that's really, at the end of the day, why we're going to use this. And to dive straight in what we'll cover today, we're going to work in our CRM, the communication system, all the automations that we can do there, all of our AI-powered automations, then the integrations as well. And then lastly, we're going to be talking about scaling your campaigns and how we can really grow from there. So let's dive straight right in. Lupe, could you tell us a little bit about why we want to automate? And I'll stop sharing in case you want to share anything else with us.
Yeah, of course. I think while you may want to mostly automate when you're working with 50 plus influencers per month, you're looking to scale your campaigns, it's always a good idea to automate things. Why not make your job more efficient and easier? So, no matter the volume of your campaigns, automating is always a good thing. The only thing or the only scenario where I would say automations are maybe not the best or should be thread lightly is when you're working maybe with paid campaigns where you need to stay on top of each influencer, or whenever you want to have a more personalized approach, sending a specific email to each influencer instead of those like automated emails that you might receive, like, hey, your product was delivered, when can we expect you to post? But even then, there's always something you can automate. You can take it to some level.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think there are multiple things that we can cover today and very useful use cases for people working on Influencer Hero.
Absolutely. There's always going to be some sort of admin task that we can reduce. We always talk about like the 80-20, 80% things you like, and then 20% is like the workload that we may not enjoy as much. So I think that there's always some room for optimization. And where do you think we should get started with this? Where should we focus on to get started on the automation process?
First of all, let me quickly say, please excuse my voice. I'm getting over a very long cold, so my
No
voice is
worries.
not the best today, but we'll do our best either way.
No worries at all.
Um, but to answer your question, I think the first thing that you need to evaluate is your internal processes, how your campaign will be made, the volume of creators that you want to work with. Are you sending products? And if so, is it the same product to everyone, or is everyone receiving different products? Are you doing any paid campaigns? Will you need contracts? And once you get that, it's also important, in my opinion, to understand, the standard way Influencer
Mhm.
Hero offers that workflow. Because, we have a campaign board with its own columns. So it's the suggested workflow, but you don't really have to stick with it. You can customize it. But once you understand the initial workflow that we suggest, when you start the campaign outreach, influencers are here. If they reply, they go to negotiation. You send them a product and they go to a waiting post. And then when they post, they go here. So you have these different stages so influencers can move forward in the partnership and you can quickly keep track of everything. Like once you understand your internal processes, but then what you already have built in the platform, that's where you can really start to work on top of it and customize your own workflow. As
No, that's
mentioned, these are the standard columns, but you can actually build your own if you click here and then just you can rename them, reorder them, delete one, create a new one. But anytime, and this is very important to everyone listening, please pay attention. Whenever you do create or edit anything about columns, you have to make sure that the automations also make sense for all of those columns.
absolutely. So systemizing your process is super, super key for this because we are building a system essentially. Do you think we could look at a couple of the automation rules and what we can customize?
Yeah, definitely. I have a very good one in mind that like I have shown already to a few of my clients. So for everyone listening, this might be very helpful if you're sending products to influencer. So, I just mentioned that when you send someone a product, they're in negotiation, you place that order, then they go to a waiting post, and that happens automatically. And that automation is this one right here, the first one that you'll see on top.
Hmm.
And by the way, this is also the new layout. I think we should all give a quick round of applause
Yes.
because it looks amazing.
Yes. So there's
um,
actually, and we can probably mention this, but the reason we moved our the initial date that we were going to host this webinar
yeah,
today is because we just launched a very new interface. It looks amazing. It also has a couple of updates. So if you are a current Influencer Hero user, I would recommend just spend a couple of minutes after this playing around, seeing where everything is at, and definitely pay attention to what we're showing today because we'll go over almost everything.
yeah, definitely. But yeah, coming back here to the automations, this is the one that we want to play with now. And before I really explain how to set one up, let me quickly cover each concept that you see here because it's very important to understand how to
Mhm.
think about that automation. So you have three elements that are needed to set up an automation. The first thing that you have is the trigger. So think of it as what starts the whole automation. It's like the alarm clock going off. But then you have the conditions, which are the filters to really say, like, okay, only execute this if it makes sense. It's like the bouncer at the club, basically. Just because you're there, which is the trigger, doesn't mean that you will go in. Um, you might need
Yes, it's the
to go through a filter to
qualifications.
go in. Yeah.
Exactly.
But then if the trigger happens and the conditions are met and are true, then the action, the automated thing you want the system to do for you will take place. So with all that in mind, as mentioned, the automation that is already built in is you send a product, that's the trigger. And the influencer, when you do that, is currently at the negotiation column. So when that happens, we want to move them to a waiting post. But in this case, and what I wanted to show you, which is a great example for anyone working with placing orders through Influencer Hero, is you can actually reverse this automation and just move the influencer, and everything else will happen automatically. So, we automate things to make it easier. So in this case, we just execute the manual part of moving someone to the other column, but all the other things that actually require more steps and more clicks will be automated. So if we're doing that, we're saying that the trigger is we're moving the influencer from one column to the other. So that is a deal stage update as the trigger. But if we're doing that, we want to say like it's not just to any column that we're moving them, right? We want to move them specifically to a waiting post. So instead of this one, we're changing it to new deal stage. That's the condition. And that new deal stage has to be a waiting post. So once we have that, the action will be, okay, I moved this person here. Now send them a product. So we'll look for send product. And then here we just select any one that we want. We can even select more than one, change the quantities, whatever we want. And we could leave it at that, but there's actually so much more that we can already automate. We can also even automate creating a discount code, which if you select it here, will be created based on the influencer's handle. And you can already choose the percentage or create it based on an affiliate group. You can also create already a custom link automatically. And for this one, if you just leave it at that, then the custom link will be also created automatically based on the influencer's handle. So it would be something like influencerhero.com/influencer handle. But as always, that just takes people to your homepage. So if you want to customize where that link takes you, if you want it to be to a specific landing page, then you can also add that landing page URL right here. We can even auto apply the discount code. And there's one step further that we can take this. We could send them an email, notifying them the product is on its way and here's your custom link and code. So the moment you receive it, you can start posting. But there's something that a lot of our users don't really realize, and that is you can actually use email flows for any stage of your influencer partnership. They're mandatory for the outreach part, but anytime you want to automate follow ups, just create an email flow. So in this case, I have already set up one before where in the first email, we're telling them, thank you for providing your shipping details. Your product is on its way. Whenever you receive it, you can go ahead and use this custom link and discount code. I use the data tags for this. Mm-hmm. And this will be automatically filled in because in the previous step of the automation, we already created them.
Yeah, and I want to, if we can go back to where you show all the different rules, all of those actions will take place only when one thing changes. So before, we had to set up different stages or we had to do each of them manually, but it's not like you have to create multiple rules for these. We can do it in just one single one, correct?
Yeah, exactly.
No, I think that's great. It definitely saves a lot of time. I've been using this myself. And I also want to highlight the email flow section because I think that follow-ups are part of that admin workload that we all hate doing, and that it takes a lot of time, especially with gifting. Sometimes it can take multiple emails, multiple follow-ups for an influencer to post. And so I think that right now we can have, I'm seeing maybe like 5 or 6 emails following up, seeing what they, if an influencer responds, providing all of the materials as well, like the code and the link and everything that they'll need without really having to do much on our end.
Yeah, exactly. And in this case, you should also space them out a bit more. When you're doing the outreach, you might want to give each email 2 days, but in this case, you want to give the influencer also some time to test a product, to think about what post would be good, produce the content, and then really go live with it. So I definitely advise spacing them out a bit more, like 5 or 7 days between each email, to really give them some real time to
Yeah.
produce that content and get it out. But yeah,
Yeah,
can save you a
absolutely.
lot of time.
Now, what if we were to do it the other way around? Like if I need to send multiple products to an influencer, like I'm giving the influencers the choice because I'm assuming that this will work when I'm giving them a specific product. Let's say it's a campaign for a lipstick and everyone gets the same lipstick and everyone's trying that. But what if I'm just the brand and I'm giving influencers a choice, let's say $100 worth of product of your choice?
I think um, in that case, the original setup of the automation would work best, where you're sending the product, is that way you are in control of what you're sending them.
Hmm.
Um, but then you can still add these other automations in here. In the original setup, we had it in a way that um, we send the product and then the influencer would go to the next stage, but you don't have to leave it at that. You can then also include the discount code, custom link, and email flow part to still automate those things as well.
No, that's perfect. And then what if once an influencer responds to that flow? I'm really highlighting this because I know that it's something that will save a lot of time. So once an influencer responds to, let's say, the second email in the sequence, what happens then?
In that case, just as any other email flow, the moment any reply is received, the email flow stops. They won't receive any other follow up. So you can just go in and check the reply and reply yourself, or you can just continue creating many types of email flows and then send another one in case they reply to this one, but they stop replying again.
Okay. No, that's great. That's awesome.
Yep.
This is super valuable. And then we also have a lot of integrations that we can pair with these
Mhm.
automations. Could you build a little bit more on that?
Yeah, definitely. And it's something kind of recent that we've launched. So if you actually head over to settings and then integrations, you'll find over 30 plus integrations. So you can connect Influencer Hero to your entire marketing ecosystem. And the idea is, again, to continue building the CRM in this one place where you can do everything that you need. So, for example, you have email marketing tools to identify influencers in your
Mm.
contacts or even export them back to that tool. You have contract sending platforms, customer service, Slack, Asana to create tasks if you're also using that for project management. There are a bunch of platforms that you can use. So I definitely would recommend that anyone watching this takes a few minutes after the webinar to explore this page and really find what platforms could work for you, because we actually also have some automations examples with integrations.
Yeah, and this is key. Whatever marketing platform you're using, probably where you're spending the most time is just migrating information from one place to the other and moving that around. That's where a lot of admin comes into play. But we have a couple of examples. We can probably dive into the first one about how we can integrate and automate a couple of things.
Yeah, and the first one I want to mention, which I think is one of the most helpful ones, is the contract sending platforms. For example, I'll explain everything with boldsign today. Connecting it is super simple. You just click here and then it's a few steps on screen and that's it. But basically, the way that integration works is you can set up different contract templates on boldsign and then just use Influencer Hero to send the contracts directly from here. And the great thing is that the information in the contract is filled in automatically with the information, that we have in the deal page. So the influencer's name, address, all of that is filled in automatically. But then the other great thing is that you're notified whenever they've seen the contract and even when they have signed it. So you don't have to move between platforms. You continue having everything here.
No, that's great. And you talked about the columns before, so we could have that in between stage between someone when we have finalized the negotiation, we've sent them the contract, but we're not awaiting their content yet. We haven't shipped the product because they haven't signed the contract. So maybe
Yeah.
like the on hold one, we could just move it to everyone that we are maybe reviewing the contract. We are in between the negotiation of maybe the terms, a fee, deliverables, and so on. Correct?
Yeah, definitely. Or you can just rename it to like send contract, and then whoever goes there needs the contract. And as mentioned, if you edit a column, you need the automation for that. So let me quickly show you how you can automate sending contracts from here. So we'll
This is
go to
great.
automations, add new rule. And then here the trigger would be, in this case, again, we're doing that slightly manual thing of just moving someone to the other column when we're ready to do that. You are negotiating with the influencer, you're ready to proceed. We'll just drag them to send contract and the rest will be done for us. So the trigger again is that we're moving them to a new column. What column? That is new
Deal
deal
stage.
stage. We're moving them to send contract. And then the action is to then send it. So in this case, if you scroll down, you'll see all of the actions related to the platforms that you have integrated with Influencer Hero. So here's the bold sign one. And setting this up is super simple. As mentioned, all you need to do is set up templates in bold sign. And we actually have templates for the templates in the Help Center article that explains this integration. So check it out if you're using it. But then here you would just look up that template and then you have two variables that you can fill in here. So for example, if you want to specify the worth of the partnership, you're paying them, as it says here, like 4,000 USD for the partnership. And then the other variable could be also, as it says here, the posting date. So we're saying it has to be posted before August 2026. And
Perfect.
then you just save it, and that's it.
No, that's great. Some variables that come to mind are also maybe deliverables, the topic. If you're sharing like a specific, you're doing the spring break brief, you're doing the summer campaign. All of that could definitely be integrated there. And a pro tip is to also have you can have multiple contracts set up as templates. So if you are having, let's say, 2 or 3 campaigns, you can have 2 or 3 different, or even more different contracts, even with the fee. So if let's say you're paying most influencers $500 and $1,000, you could just create both of those and you don't even have to
Mm,
fill in the variables.
yeah, definitely.
Absolutely.
That's a
No, this is a great one. And then in regards to, because this is all more for external communication with influencers and that relationship, but we also have some inbound things, right? Brand safety, KPIs, things that are useful internally as a brand.
Yes. And for that one, the main one that I also really like is the Slack integration. If anyone here is on Slack, you can quickly integrate Influencer Hero to get regular notifications, like every time someone posts, whenever a product is received, whenever a purchase is made, things like that. But with the automations here, you can actually also set up custom notifications in Slack. And a good one is, every now and then something will go wrong with the negotiation or with the partnership, and you have an influencer who's not very content with everything, and you never know when they would choose to go live and
Mhm.
basically share their bad experience online, and we never want to get to that. So that's good with what you were saying about brand safety. You can actually use Slack to react upon this and act before it's too late and they really decide to do something about it.
No, that's great because of course there's room. I won't say lots, but there's room for human error with every product shipment, when an order is being fulfilled. Maybe an influencer accidentally created the order with 1 instead of 2 items. So I think that knowing about this is great. Do you know this would not be done with like our AI conditions, correct?
Yeah, exactly. So to explain how that would go is, in this case, we are receiving that communication from the influencer. They're complaining about something, and that's with email communication. So the trigger would be that we are receiving an email, but we want to check what specific email. It's not just with every email that we want to receive a Slack notification. We would go mad. We just want to get it
Yeah.
if the influencer is complaining about something or they're mad. So in that case, we can use, as Nicole mentioned, the AI to evaluate a custom condition that we give it. So right here, What you need to do is just type answer with yes, if, and then your condition as it shows in the example. Basically, just like if you were doing the if formula in Excel, it's kind of like programming it to understand. So we'll say answer with yes if influencer is complaining or mad about something. And in that case, we're telling the platform scan the emails, but only execute this task if the influencer is mad or
Okay.
complaining about something.
Perfect.
And then again, we'll scroll down, find the integration section, and then we have send custom message for Slack. And in here, you just look up the Slack channel where you want to receive that notification. You can even create a separate one just for Influencer Hero notifications, and then you'll have it here. And then just type in what you want that message that you're receiving to say. So it can be something like influencer is mad, pay attention. And then, yeah, this will help you basically, and especially when you're working with a lot of influencers, or I know we have a lot of people who is just one person managing everything. And I know it can be a lot, and you might not have time to log into the CRM every day. So with these types of notifications, you can know when it's really needed to log in and pay attention.
Yeah, or even if you are logging in every day, where should I place all of my energy? Or the first thing I should execute is this. And it could be the other way around. If you want to see someone, if you want to receive feedback, for example,
Yeah.
that could be. I'm like thinking some other conditions with AI that we may want to see. If someone says that they're not going to post, or that they had an accident and the posting date is moved, these are all conditions that we could potentially have as
Yeah.
well. I think.
Yeah. Here, the this AI condition will scan everything in the influencer deal page. So it's not only emails, it's also if you leave a note, if it's their address, anything in the deal page will be scanned by the AI. So yeah, you can use it for pretty much anything you want.
Okay. No, I think this is fantastic. And then we also have email marketing tools that are new.
Yes. And as mentioned initially, for example, let me go over it again. If you use Klaviyo, for example, then by connecting it to Influencer Hero, you can identify influencers among your contacts, and that is right here in the Finder. But the way you can do it with automations is to then export information from Influencer Hero to Klaviyo. If you want to then send them like specific newsletters, or you just want to add them to your weekly newsletter, things like that, um, you can automatically export that information there. And I think a useful example would be whenever someone has posted, that usually means that the partnership has ended, or at least the
Mhm.
initial part of it. So maybe then you would want to move them to Klaviyo and keep them in a specific list. So in that case, I would just also edit on top of one of the standard automations that we already have, which is for when the influencer has posted. If they post and they were in a waiting post, then they'll go to posted, and that is already built in here. But we can just add that extra action of also exporting that influencer to Klaviyo. And here it's simply connecting the account you want to use and then looking up that list where you want to create that profile.
No, this is awesome, especially for I'm thinking of like Easter that just happened. If you may want to, if you launched a product, Christmas, Black Friday. I mean, Black Friday is the mecca of influencer marketing. So definitely for that, it's super important whenever we're doing anything that's new and we want to let influencers know. This makes it very easy. Klaviyo is just one tool, but there's others as well. And you can of course export all of the list. Since before the integrations as well, like the emails of the influencers and so on. So this is very useful. And now I will love to go over my personal favorite, which is for performance.
Yes, that's also a very good one, and I think a very powerful one because when you get an influencer to post, you might think that's the end of it, but it doesn't have to be. There are so many things that you can do and work on after the initial part of the partnership is done. You can spot your top performing influencers and invite them to new opportunities. You can keep them in a special list to send them special emails whenever you want to, as Nicole was saying, like with the seasonality campaigns, or keep them informed about early releases. So it's definitely important to keep an eye on performance KPIs. And you can actually use, again, the automations to spot those top performers. You don't need to guess or wander the entire campaign board to find who's doing well. You can just use two types of triggers. You could use based on like order performance every time a new order is received, or if you want to say like a specific threshold, maybe notify me once this influencer has made over 5 sales. But the one I want to show you today is with media KPIs, because we also track, engagement, likes, comments, impressions. So you can also classify your top performers depending on how well they did online. Um, so we have the media KPI as the trigger. But now with conditions, we specify what kind of media KPI. And we have a few options. Can be like a new likes count, comments, impressions, or just a change in comments, impressions. And you can take it a step further and classify just for Instagram or just for TikTok if you're working with different platforms in one campaign board.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I think a good example would be, I think usually likes is what most people look at. Um, so maybe we can say, okay, notify me whenever an influencer has over 1,000 likes. So we have the trigger, the condition to say only do it if it's over 1,000 likes. And then the action could be, either to receive a notification via email. So you can then come in here, take a look at the post and decide what you want to do next, or also use the Slack integration for this and receive a notification there. Or another way, and to really help extend the campaign's longevity and all of that, would be to have a separate campaign board as I created here. I did another campaign just for top performing influencers. So we can then classify them in here and already know that if you come in here, these are your top performers. So you already know who you're working with and decide what you want to do next. But first, we're still here, letting the platform do the classifying for us. So we have them classified, and then we will only move them in that case. So the action is update deal stage. But in this case, we're selecting that new campaign board that I just showed you, the top performing influencers board. And then the stage could be any stage. I'll just select the first one. And with that, we're saying, okay, scan all the posts, but only when you spot that an influencer has over 1,000 likes, that's when you move that influencer to this new campaign board.
Two things come to mind with this. One of them is that we get to spot the people that we want to continue working with, because we know that not everyone is going to be a top performing influencer or partner. And we get to, we don't even have to do it. Something else does it for us, which I think is, it's super useful. But then another one is, we think of longevity with campaigns. We want to have long-term relationships with influencers. We want to have their audience be exposed multiple times to our brand, to our product, to our activity, to whatever we're promoting. And so we get to stop to spot the top performers, but also the top content. And that content, so we don't have to choose just to partner with that person again, but maybe if we want to highlight that content, if we want to boost it, if we want usage rights and we want to use it for ads, for whitelisting, we can get notified, and not just at the end of the month when we do a report, but really, or once a week, but really right when it's happening, when the content is hot, when it's performing
Mm.
good. So I think that's also very useful because it helps to integrate social media teams with the partner teams at the same time. And even you can have the notifications on that Slack channel or on the email thread, you could have the social media team added to it. So they get notified when a post is doing good, and they can do all of like the media boosting and so on.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. I hadn't thought of it. You could just also notify your team, even if they're not working on Influencer Hero. If you have
Mm,
an agency that's maybe taking care of your paid ads, you could just notify them. So easy. No need to be
yeah.
in between that.
And then they can decide if the content quality is good, if the brief is meant just as they envisioned it. But they could ask for usage rights, but essentially, and maybe crop a part that they don't like and use it. So we're not just going to have performance from maybe a commission-based link or non-commission as well, just so an affiliate link, but also from the paid ad itself. And so we're boosting also internally the amount of revenue that may come in. So we're not just minimizing that to partnerships, but also so many ads and other possibilities. And again, longevity, that's one of the goals that we
The
have with.
key.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Now, we're going to be wrapping up a little bit with this, but I would love for everyone listening to us to have a chance to ask questions. The second button on the right-hand side menu has a little question mark, and I would love for anyone that may have some questions to ask those. We would love to go over everything. Um, we hope that some ideas were sparked about what can be done, and this is just the beginning. We don't think that AI is the future. We think that AI is right here and automations are here, that they're what we're living through. And so we want for everyone to reap the most out of these. So
Yeah.
if there's any questions, I see a couple of them popping up. One of them, super important, is that the recording will be uploaded. We'll share that over email, but it will also be on Influencer Heroes YouTube. It'll probably be on LinkedIn as well. And then we can email it afterwards as well, too. Great. Now, I have a couple of questions here. One of them is, can I get notified when an influencer generates sales or referrals?
Yes. Actually, just the way I was showing you, let me quickly share again to explain as I do it. Um, Basically, right here, instead of getting notified based on the media KPI, you can get a notification every time an order is received, and that just means, when a purchase is made. Um, and in that case, the condition you want is based on performance. We have it right here. So you can get notified every time, there's a new referral, or only, as I mentioned before, when you go over that threshold, if you want to especially spot top performers. Maybe if you're only a top performer once you've made more than 10 sales, then you would set it up this way. And then just, yeah, the action would be to get the notification via email or through Slack.
Okay. Oh, this is great. Now I have a question on contracts. What if you're offering your influencers multiple things in the contract? So it's not just monetary. How do you add those? And I'm not exactly sure about what you mean, but if you are giving them multiple things, so it's products, it's a tiered structure as well, I would probably just include that I would create a template with that.
Yeah, as you mentioned, the different types of templates, I'm sure you might still have groups of things that you offer. If an influencer has this amount of followers, then they receive this. If they have this amount of followers, then they'll receive that. And then with a few types of contract templates, you might already solve that, but you still always get those two variables that I showed that you can fill in when you're automating it.
Fantastic. This is super useful. Now, I have another good one. Can I automate sending a product to a new influencer that gets added to a board? So when I add someone to a campaign, can I automate that?
Yeah, you can do that right away. Basically, it would be, I guess, I think if the deal stage update and then
There's
outreach would work.
there's a trigger, I think, when their shipping details have been shared with us, because you would need the
Yeah,
influencer's shipping details at the end of the day, whether it's at the very beginning or somewhere in between the negotiation. I think that that's something that we could use.
yeah, great thinking. Either even if they're added to the board, as Nicole mentioned, you need the shipping details, otherwise the order won't be placed. So in that case, what you can use as a trigger is that the shipment details are completed. because we have an AI tool that automatically adds their shipping address into the influencer profile whenever the influencer has shared those via email. It just grabs them and pulls them in there. So the moment that happens, that can be a trigger. And no matter if you want, you don't really have to filter it and say only if they're in the outreach column, only if they're in negotiation. That doesn't have to be a thing. It can just be whenever that happens that you then send them a product.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's probably how I would do it as well. Have everything ready, but as soon as their shipping details have been filled in, a product gets sent out. Now, I have a great question, and I think that we can relate this to the last topic that we were talking about. What would you recommend when working with influencers that have great content but low conversions?
In what way?
I think this could probably be the boosting opportunity that we were mentioning. So
Mm.
if they have, let's say, great engagement, the content is beautiful, but maybe it wasn't the right match with their audience, so it didn't have as many conversions as we expected. I would probably ask for usage rights, get that notification. Okay, if my KPI is, let's say, 1,000 likes, like you said before, then I want to get that content, and I'm gonna ask. And I could actually have an email flow, assuming we could automate that email flow to be sent out as an action when they meet the threshold of 1,000 likes. Just asking for usage rights in their content, if they have a fee, if they want to give it away for free, and seeing if I have ownership of that, if I can use it for ads, if I can boost it, and maybe our as a brand, my audience will match better, maybe, and drive better conversions. I could also use that in my newsletter on my website, and segment that a little bit better for boosting.
Yeah, I think you said it all.
That's great. So you
Just
have
going
some
through
other
more questions
questions.
here. Let's see.
Mm, let's see. So I see about long-term partnerships. Let's see. Time saving value. Would I be able to add time saving value to my workflows on managing live streamer partnerships that are long term, even if not on like the traditional native Instagram, TikTok content? By the way, we can do this for YouTube as well. So usually for live streaming, that can be quite big. And then the second question says, would Influencer Hero rather be a tool to get started more with the kinds of one and done partnerships? And also the idea is to nurture those relationships. You need one to get started, one partnership or one post essentially. But at the end of the day, we want for these to keep on going. And we see that usually it takes the audience, right? Multiple exposure opportunities to a product for them to make a purchase decision. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think there are many things you can do to keep track, especially as he says with a live streamer. I'm assuming it's not just one time that they're doing it.
Mhm.
Um, we have that standard thing that they're in a waiting post, and if they post, they go to post it. You can always move them back, so it's easy for you to spot when there's somebody new that posted, or even if they're not new, when that just happened again. And also using the boards to keep extending that, creating a new board that's just for relationship management. It's not the new ones that you're working with, but it's people that you are extending that partnership. And it's easier that way to know who you may want to invite to a seasonality campaign, who gets new products as soon as they're released. Yeah, it's all about spotting those top performers, not just keeping it at a one time thing, and then extending the exposure. And you can definitely do that here.
Absolutely. The CRM also, just like the communication aspect with long-term relationships, can entail a lot of work. So I think that we do have a lot of tools to simplify that. You can add lots of templates, chat GPT prompts, of course, all of the email flows, the bulk actions as well. So if you're having multiple really long-term relationships, you could definitely look into that. Now I see a really good one here. and Luba, you can probably build more on this. Can I
Yeah.
automate sending an email with all the information of the campaign to all of the people that responded that are interested in my outreach? That way I don't have to manually respond to each one.
Yes, and with that one, I would also recommend using the AI auto evaluates a custom condition. Um, and to do that, we would again need the trigger to be an email received because the influencer is replying to our initial outreach, but we want to only execute this when they're interested. So as mentioned, we'll use the AI evaluates a custom condition, and we'll say answer with yes if the influencer is interested and isn't asking for anything else, because usually they might ask for larger budget or a budget if you don't have any. So I would add that in there just in case isn't asking for anything else. And then if that happens, then we want to reply with an email. So again, it can be just a one-time email that you write right here. If you have already created templates within Influencer Hero, you can choose that template. Or you can then again just write a whole email flow with the first email being wherein you say, glad you're interested. These are the details. If you're ready, let's go. Um, but it can happen that even during the negotiation, maybe they said that we're interested and then you don't hear back from them again. So you might want to also create an email flow so you have those automated follow-ups as well in case they don't reply, even if they were interested, can totally happen.
Yeah.
So you have those three options.
Awesome. Now I have one that's more about the influencer marketing space as a whole, which I think we can probably build an entire webinar on this. But is it normal to have only a few clicks for a micro influencer with 20K followers? It seems like story views are less than before, yet they remain the only direct way to add links. And I think this is an issue that we can probably everyone can relate to. Um, Instagram rules about exposure and the algorithm is changing constantly all the time. So it may be the case, but at the same time, there are a couple of things that we can do. One of them is the link in bio. This is something that we don't see being requested in contracts, in partnerships many times, and it's super useful. Link trees, things like Creator Hero or Influencer Storefront are also really big because even if they're not publishing about your product itself, they may be promoting a different product, but if they're right next to each other, then people are still going to be exposed. So you're having always on exposure with the audience.
Yeah,
Let's Is there anything else that we may have missed?
I think we're a little bit over time now, almost reaching an hour. I think there was a lot that we covered. Hopefully, you were able to keep up, and if not, again, you will receive the recording. And we also have the help center articles that also explain step by step how to set up an automation, what trigger and condition means in case you also forget. There are some use cases in there as well that you can copy, just like copy paste. Um, so yeah, you will get the support either way. And I just also wanted to add that if you're not a user yet and you are interested in maybe scheduling a demo with our team or you have more questions about Influencer Hero, you can reach out to the email I just said in the chat. It's inquiries@influencer-hero.com. And our sales team will help you out. And if you're already a user and you want to maybe already implement what you've learned today, then please feel free to reach out to your account managers and or to our support email as well, and we'll be there to help you.
Great. Well, thank you everyone so much for your time. We hope that we sparked some ideas. Again, there's so many different tools in which you can build automations similar to this. So if you're curious, I hope that you're curious about this, that you stay ahead of the game with automations, that you're able to save time, be more efficient, and also that means that you'll be able to spend more time thinking about your creatives, the execution of things, reporting, analyzing numbers, which is also important as well. So we're looking forward to next time, and we'll see you soon.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Thank you,
everyone.
everyone, for attending.
Have a good one.